For your first mid-range, generally you want something that's slow and understable, so you can get that straight flight and you can easily get those mid-range shots dialed in. But once you're trying to expand your game a little bit more, you're going to want to pick something a little bit more versatile so you can throw those hyzer shots with a little bit more confidence and trust in your mid-range game. This is how to choose your go-to mid-range. The first thing to look at when choosing a disc is the feel. I usually like a micro bead and a shallow disc, but if you like something deeper or shallower or bigger bead or no bead, it's important to know that so you know what to look for. So because I like the micro bead, I really like the feel of the Truth and the Verdict and the EMAC Truth and even the Warrant, because they all have a similar feel and I'm going to feel confident and get a clean release when I throw those. The next thing to look at is plastic. For your first mid-range, generally you want something that's going to fly consistently, fly the same for a long time. So you're going to want something really durable. But in your go-to mid-range, that's one way to go, but lots of people tend to go a little bit of a different way. As you play more disc golf and throw your discs, they're going to hit trees and they're going to land in the ground and they might even hit the basket, but they're going to start getting beat in. They're going to start getting roughed up around the edges, and that's going to make them fly less stable. Now, when you have a disc that is not flying the way it was when it was new, you kind of have two options. You can either retire it or you can use it for a different shot. I generally advise people to do the latter one, because if it's already starting to get beat in, that means you've been throwing it a lot and you're pretty confident in that disc. So for example, I have here a Verdict, an EMAC Truth, a Truth, and a Warrant. And let's say that I really like my EMAC Truth, which I do, but let's say I really like this disc and I throw it on almost every hole, and I don't hit many trees, but let's just say I hit a lot of basket. So I ring up a lot of chains and I'm just acing everything with this disc. It's gonna start to get roughed up around the edges. And after a few weeks, it's gonna start to fly a little bit less stable because of that. It's because it's getting beat in around the outside. And eventually it'll start to fly pretty similar to my Truth. So at this point, I've been throwing my EMAC Truth an awful lot. I really like this disc. So I'm not gonna wanna take it out of my bag just because it's not flying the same stable line. I'm going to want to throw this one for a little bit straighter shots and add a new EMAC Truth for the more stable shots. So that's how cycling works, and generally people like to do it with a softer plastic, something like the Biofusion plastic, or we have Verdicts here in the Prime plastic, and the Prime plastic is fantastic for cycling. Lots of people like that baseline plastic for their mid-ranges, especially their go-tos, because it's going to have a little bit more grip, and some people like the feel of that putter plastic in their mid-ranges. So if you do throw a Prime Verdict, it is going to beat up pretty quickly because it's not really designed to be thrown into trees and such, but that's not really a problem. It's just going to be easier to cycle because it's going to beat in faster and it can take the slot of that straighter disc or something like that a little bit quicker. So you know how you want your go-to mid-range to feel, and you know what plastic you want it in. What do you want it to fly like? Well, you want that disc to fly in as many different shot shapes as you can make it. So you want something you can throw on hyzers, you can throw really straight, or you can even get a turnover out of. You want it to be so versatile that when you walk up to a tee pad, you're like, oh, this is just a shot for my go-to. And you know that you can execute that shot. That's the reason why the EMAC Truth is such a popular disc, because it's easy to throw it on hyzers, easy to get it straight, and easy to get it to turn over just a little bit while finishing straight. And a lot of people just walk up to the tee pad and they say, oh, this is a great shot for my EMAC. Now, personally, I play in a little bit more of a windy area, so I want something a little bit more stable than that. So while the EMAC is great for those straight shots or those that finish a little bit to the right, I like to throw my Biofusion Verdict. Now, the Biofusion plastic is a great example of cycling, because when I got this disc, it was my overstable mid-range, my confident disc that I could throw flat and let fade. But in the Biofusion plastic, it's gotten a little bit beat up, and now this one likes to turn just a little bit so I can get that straight flight and get that little bit of fade at the end. It doesn't quite fade as hard as it used to. But a few years ago, the courses around me were very wooded, and I liked to throw a lot of those hyzer flip shots and trust them to get that straight flight, and so I threw a ton of the EMAC Truth back then. If you like to throw with that hyzer release and you like to get that straight flight, you might even go something like a Truth or a Warrant just to get that consistent hyzer release and be able to work it into that turnover or work it into that hyzer. So that's how to choose your go-to mid-range. Make sure to subscribe here at Dynamic Disc so you make sure you don't miss any of our content, and we'll see you next time.